Hi there. So this video then is it's supposed to demonstrate the Turkish Get-up, but not necessarily a sort of CrossFit style Turkish Get-up. This is more of a general movement exercise in order to fire up something called the posterior oblique core subsystem, and that is this chap right here. Okay, so this is all about trying to stabilise your SI joint. So if you're watching this video, it's because I've highlighted to you that your pelvis is anteriorly rotating on one side. Okay, and this is because the SI joint, the sacroiliac joint, that's this joint just here. It can tilt forward in some cases. It's subject to something called form and force closure. So it's got a lot of congruency. It's a broad joint space. It's got the potential to create a lot of friction, depressions and ridges within that joint surface, make it very, very stable when that joint is closed. And it's most closed when it's tilting forwards. Okay, so that's what they call a form closure, because the form of the joint itself is creating the stability in that joint. It works better when it's using a combination of form and force closure. So force closure is when muscles around the joint create perpendicular forces which help to compress the joint and make it stable as well. And ideally, as we go through our gait cycle, you'll be experiencing a bit of both. There'll be moments where you're tilting forwards and creating good form closure, and there'll be moments where you're posteriorly rotating and creating a force closure. And hopefully you've got the stability, muscularly speaking, to create that stability when you need it in your gait cycle. The trouble is, you can end up with some muscular dysfunction, which means that your force closure isn't as good as it could be, and in that situation, one possible scenario is that you rotate forward and you stay there because that's the only place that you're stable, and you no longer experience the full complement of the movement. You literally just stay there and get stuck there. Okay, so what we're trying to do is get you to activate something called the posterior oblique core subsystem, which is arguably the main muscle sling that creates this perpendicular force closure. We're going to try and train that up a little bit so that you at least have the opportunity to unlock your SI joint, because the muscles are there to catch you. So going back to this, so this is our posterior oblique system. It basically utilises the latissimus dorsi on one side of the body that works with the glute max of the opposite side of the body via something called the thoracolumbar fascia. That fascia is multi-layered. It's really it really perfuses all the tissue structures in that area, envelops all the muscles. It's got connections to your pelvis, to your pelvic ligaments. It's got connections, or creates connections, between musculature all the way up in your shoulders. So it's a vast structure, and principally we want to get some forces acting on it by recruiting the latissimus dorsi together with the glute max at the same time. Okay, so let's try and demonstrate this movement then. So if I take you down here, I will try to put you in a position where you can see everything. Okay, and hopefully you can still hear me whilst I'm down here. Okay, so it's good to have an object. So in CrossFit, you might have a dumbbell or a kettlebell or something, but we're not interested in putting weight into this scenario at the moment. We just want you to have a visual objective to watch as you're performing this movement. Okay, that creates quite a strong cerebellar and like a visual task and a vestibular task that goes alongside this movement, so we get a lot of really good brain training as well. Okay, so in this case I'm going to work, for ease of the camera, I'm going to work my right to left posterior oblique core subsystem, and that would be for the purpose of stabilising my left SI joint. Okay, I've got some anti-back gel as my objective, which is just going to be held directly in front of my face, and I'm going to fix my eyes on that point, and I'm not going to lose it. Okay, and I'm going to come up to a sitting position. My right leg starts bent in this example. I'm going to come up to a sitting position without losing sight of my object. I'm going to come fully up onto my hand, and this is the key moment. I'm going to utilise my glute max and my latissimus dorsi together. Okay, so in this position, there's a big diagonal force loading going through my body from my glute on the right to my shoulder on my left, and that's creating that muscle training, that co-activation that we're looking for. Okay, from here I can then take one leg underneath myself, and by any means I need to come up to standing. Okay, and then I'm going to reverse it, and I haven't taken my eyes off of my object at any point. Okay, and I think as a coordination task it's really lovely. I quite enjoy doing it, but if you do want to add weight, you can start with something as light as a 4 kilogram kettlebell or dumbbell. I mean, you'll see it if you go on YouTube. You'll see people doing it with 12 kilogram kettlebells and higher, because it's actually part of their strengthening and conditioning routine that is very popular. So, but that's not why we're doing it. I want to do it for the brain interest, so the vestibular ocular interest of it all, and for this co-activation of this posterior oblique core subsystem, for the purpose of giving your SI joint the opportunity to force close or force stabilise, rather than over relying on form closure, and in other words staying rotated and stuck. Okay, so have a little go at that, and we'll see how you're getting on next time I see you in the clinic. Okay, thank you, cheerio.